All right, folks, here we go on this Monday. Yes, let's go. All right, we're going to be live. Well, we are live. We're going to begin in just a couple of moments. Yep. Pete says we are good to go. Mike, I can't believe how much news there is. There's an incredible amount of news. And there he is. You're trying to reach him, but I don't know if we're going to be able to. Okay, we're going to be joined by Justin Katz coming up in just a couple moments. Folks, there's so much news on this. We have a lot to cover this hour. For our purposes, we're going to be on today and tomorrow, and then off, obviously, Christmas Eve. And if something breaks, good afternoon, everyone. There's Lynn Miller. Then, we'll be live. We may be live tonight. I don't know. We are going to try to work it out. But obviously, Merry Christmas, one and all. But we're rolling because there's a lot of news right now, and we're going to try to go through it. But between Channel 12 was able to reach this custodian. I have other things going on. It's still difficult on something like this. There's other interviews to get, but Channel 12 did reach him. The Boston Globe found him. I wanted to talk to him, but obviously he's been a little busy. I did have his name, Derek Lisi, but it's tough because I'm juggling so much. I'm still trying to get Christmas gifts done, only because things, as you know, have been nonstop since this news broke. So let me just share this. We're going to begin in 4 minutes. Wow. And major developments. There is an answer now. Now we know, at least I know why Governor McKee looked like death warmed over at those briefings. If you saw him, especially Thursday, he just looked terrible. And now we know why. It had nothing to do with the shooting. It has to do with the fact that they have paused the wind farm. And I recognize we're focused on Brown. We have a lot of information on Brown. Brown realizes also how significant this whole situation is. But we'll touch on it. We're going to do politics this week with Justin Katz. And I think the pausing of the offshore wind farms, I believe that could actually lead Governor McKee to leave the race. I believe that. So, all right. We're going to start just 2 minutes out. 2 minutes out. That's how significant it is. Because the only way that Governor McKee was going to be able to run for re-election. Oh, good. Just finished shopping. Great. Yes. Too funny, Chuck. Well, we will be, I'm on the air today, obviously. Maybe tonight. Possibly tonight, live tonight. Definitely tomorrow. And maybe tomorrow night. And then we're going to take a little break for Christmas Eve and Christmas. I am looking forward to it. But let's see what happens with the news. Right? Let's see what happens with the news. Let's just get through the next 55 minutes, and then we'll see where we are. I think I'm booked to do TV tonight, but I need to double check. I think I am. But if they say for whatever reason they're doing a different story, I'm totally fine with it. There's also some discrepancy about, quote, the hero, the homeless guy. I know I keep saying give him the 50 grand. He didn't stop anything. He knew on Saturday and Sunday. By the time he gave them what he knew about the vehicle, the shooter was apparently dead. So I actually kind of agree with there are heroes here. I'm not convinced he's the hero. I think Attorney General Peter Neronha really, I thought, overplayed that a little bit. He blew open the case. The guy was dead, basically, in the supposedly early morning hours of late Monday and then into Tuesday. I admit the whole thing is odd, but it's not like they caught him. That's why I have a problem with the FBI. We got him. You found him. They didn't get anybody. That's why they're getting pummeled nationwide. I mean, my God, the beating that the locals have taken. So we are going to begin, folks. And again, 106, good afternoon, one and all, on this Christmas week. It is Christmas week. Right now, we are live on X. We are live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're also live on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. You can always listen online at our website, which is depetro.com. This portion of the program brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Stop in and see them. Last minute Christmas gifts, Fraser fir trees, balsam trees, potted live trees, custom handmade wreaths, 10 to 60 inches in size. They have Christmas swag and mistletoe, gift certificates. They're open until Christmas Eve. Stop and see them. 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. And they want to thank you and all their loyal customers. This has been the best year they have ever had, and I'm so happy for them. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Now, folks, check out depetro.com. Remember, if you want to reach me, that's an easy way to reach me. depetro.com, which is brought to you by the Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. Remember, they can accommodate large groups. If you have it, hey, let a big group together. You don't want to be crammed in somewhere where there's not enough room. The Cohasset Inn, they could handle it. So whether it is lunch or dinner or maybe like a last minute, hey, we're getting some people together. Let's meet at the Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue in West Warwick. So I do want to give you the latest, and it is significant, and I have talked about it. I want to give credit to the Boston Globe. They're really the ones that got a hold of him. I knew the name Derek Lisi. I did know that, but it doesn't matter now. But what he has said is very significant. Brown University custodian says he saw the shooting suspect casing building over several weeks and flagged security. Now, there's two levels to this, and I don't think everybody gets this. There's actually three levels. There's three different branches. You have Providence Police that are completely separate than Brown University Police. Brown University Police, they have a police force. They have a police chief for now, Chapman. They carry weapons. I know several of the Brown University Police. A good friend of mine was one of their detectives at one time. My friend Chuck Cunningham was also Brown Police now, not security, police. So now on top of that, then they also apparently employ a private security firm. That is important. It may not seem important to some people, but I'm telling you, it's important, and it's a distinction, significant. But there were certainly warning signs here. There's certainly warnings. And I want to go to, I haven't seen the Channel 12 story, but Brown University, Derek Lisi, custodian. So he's worked at Brown for 15 years. He had taken note of a man pacing the hallways, peering into classrooms, ducking into a bathroom to avoid being seen. Derek Lisi, who I would love to talk to. We're trying to find him, but I would think this morning he's been occupied doing an interview with Channel 12. Brown University custodian said he saw the alleged mass shooter opened fire in the classroom last Saturday, December 13th, nearly a dozen times several weeks before the attack. So Derek Lisi, who has worked at Brown for 15 years, he had taken note of a man pacing the hallways, peering into classrooms, ducking into a bathroom to avoid being seen. He later recognized him in the photos shared by police of the man they say killed 2 people, injured 9 others on Saturday, December 13th. He's been casing that police for weeks, Lisi said in an interview. That's interesting. I wonder if this is going to move back the timeline. The first time that we've heard that the gunman appeared on campus was shortly after Thanksgiving, that Friday into Saturday. This Derek Lisi, the custodian, he's claiming that it was actually mid-November that he was facing. Lisi, who had not been publicly identified until now, he was in the affidavit, said he had seen a man matching the description of the suspect, wearing the same clothes in and around Brown's Barris and Holly Engineering Physics building on about 10 occasions, he claims beginning in early November. Early November. I knew something was off with him. Twice, he said, he told a campus security guard there was a suspicious person in the building. Brown University officials said the private security firm, Lisi identified as the guard's employer, didn't respond Sunday night to a request for comment about his version of events. Lisi said that in mid-November, he told the security guard, who he believed worked for a private firm hired at the university, that he'd seen a man circling the hallways. He wasn't sure what the security guard did with the information. Lisi said he continued seeing the man, who he said was peering into classrooms, hanging around outside room 166. That's Tanner Hall in particular. I thought it was someone trying to steal something. Every time he saw me, I think he thought I was security because he would always walk away. It was room 166. The suspect, now identified police, Claudio Manuel Neves, opened fire, killing 2 people, injuring 9 students. Police also believe he was responsible for the murder 2 days later of the MIT professor in Brookline. On December 1st, the last day before Lisi left for holiday vacation, he decided to follow the man after seeing him in a parking lot. So this guy's been away out the whole month, the custodian. So the last time he saw him was December 1st. So how long was this guy in the area? When the man saw him, he started walking away, quick ducked into the bathroom. I said, something's off with this guy, so I got to say something. So he flagged down the same private security guard. The guard didn't investigate. Providence police confirmed Lisi told them after the shooting he had alerted a security guard about his suspicions. He was not the only person who had gotten a glimpse of the alleged assailant before the mass shooting. A faculty member told police she had seen a car matching the description of the suspect's rental car, driving very slowly in the area surrounding the school ahead of the attack. A man identified police only as John also told police he had seen the suspect acting suspiciously near the building in the days leading up to the attack. At one point in the hours before the shooting, allegedly chased him on foot. That tip from the homeless guy, John, first flagged on the social media site Reddit, led authorities to the car the suspect had rented, ultimately to the storage facility in New Hampshire, where he was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And let me just quickly mention, there were people contacting me. I found these pictures floating around of the gunman dead in the storage facility. It's fake. That is AI. You may not realize that. Stop embarrassing yourselves. That's not a real photo. It's totally fake. It's so embarrassing how fake it is. I'll tell you how embarrassingly fake it is. Initially, there was a photo floating around of a guy wearing a yellow vest. It's the man that apparently works at or runs the manager of the storage facility. So somebody created an image of the man that runs the storage facility in the yellow vest that he had taken his life. So the image was actually compiled before we have the actual shooter. It's so ridiculous. I'm going to start naming names of people. Wake up. What's wrong with you? Those photos are fake. Something's fishy. I found the... Oh my God. It's so fake. It's AI. P.T. Barnum was right. Sucker born every minute. Black blah, blah, blah. The reward, I don't know about the reward. I'm not going to, let's wait till everything plays out. I know that John is being put up by the state, not against his will, but he was homeless. They want to question him. I know he keeps asking about the 50,000, but he didn't go to police on Saturday. He did Sunday. He then posted on Reddit this business of the, yeah, I gotta admit, even I was saying the homeless hero, but he didn't. If we find out now that the shooter took his own life, they have him on video entering the storage facility and never leaving, and then he's found dead in the storage facility. So I don't know about he helped them locate him. I guess you could say it would have been harder for them to locate the vehicle, but it's not like they then died in a gun battle. There are heroes here that have not been presented. There are heroes here that, listen, it sounds like his description, especially on Reddit, helped police identify the vehicle. But that Brown professor did as well. And then you have many of the victims in the hospital. So on December 13th, when Lisi got an alert about a shooter on campus sent to the members of the community, he immediately thought of the guy in the building. I told my friend, I hope it's not the guy I've been seeing. I hope not. When he saw images of the suspect, he said he recognized him right away. Listen to this. I knew it was him because I could tell by the walk. He had a very distinct walk. Lisi also recognized the jacket, dark clothing a man had been wearing on campus. The only difference was he remembered seeing him in a blue face mask, not a black one. He called the public tip line that night, told police to look for security footage of the man in the building on 2 days in particular when he was certain he had seen him. 2 days later on Monday night, police called, asked to meet with him. They spoke in a Home Depot parking lot. I don't know what that's all about. I also, do you see also another breakdown here? The tip line is supposed to be for the general public. The university should have done a better job than the RSL. The guy that was in and out of the building should not be. A tip line is for just like general public. I don't know what to make of the fact that you have the custodian, you have the custodian is calling the tip line. They should have said, we need to interview everyone that has worked in these buildings. I'm not saying it's his fault. He did the right thing by contacting the tip line. Don't get me wrong. But I don't understand why they weren't interviewing all these people. And I don't understand why they're meeting with them in a Home Depot parking lot. Police said they spoke with him, confirmed it was Lisi, had run-ins with a man matching the shooting suspect's description. Police also confirmed at the time Lisi told them he had previously flagged the person to campus security personnel. Lisi said he contacted police long before the FBI began offering a reward and said he isn't interested in the money. I did it for the safety of the students. Regardless of that, the money, just to put this in perspective, the money is supposed to lead to the arrest and conviction of the individual. I don't know what's going to happen here. And I know many people are saying Brown should give him the money or, whoever should give him the money. But just normally, that's the situation of the reward. A reward is apprehend, and then it results in a conviction. I don't know. I mean, if people say there seems to be, but this goes to, I'll say it was Attorney General Peter Nerona that was kind of leading the charge here that, he broke open the case, possibly by identifying the vehicle. I don't know. But then Lisi, the custodian, says that building's been a free-for-all for a long time. Anybody could just come in. Lisi said he's close with the students. So, again, that is very different. None of this makes Brown University look good. Now, there's two other big developments here. And then we're going to talk to Justin Katz, the editor of anchorrising.com, our segment Politics this week. Two developments here. Brown University, the Fox News is already reporting that they have retained Zach Kuna. Zach Kuna, who I know, Zach Kuna, let me put it this way, actually. He's the best local attorney. He's not one of the best. I would actually say Zach Kuna is the best. He's the former U.S. attorney, and then he was appointed during the Biden administration. He resigned as soon as the new administration came in. But where people may have seen him, he was the one the state hired recently with the Washington Bridge hearings, Zach Kuna. So Brown University apparently has already retained him, knowing that there's going to be a lot of lawsuits here. And there's a lot of vulnerability here. And we're obviously going to talk about the Brown situation for quite some time. But something that can't be ignored, many of you have mentioned, and I noticed it, that, and I'll talk about it with Justin, but that Governor McKee, he looked like really bad last week, especially if you saw Thursday night. I just thought the whole week he seemed off. Now, you could say, but he's not the most guy, but words just come out. So anyhow, just to finish it, but he looked really bad on Thursday. Like, I actually thought, is there something physically wrong with him? Maybe there's a health situation here. But what we've learned is, due to security concerns, the Trump administration has paused the offshore wind. That's why I think Governor McKee knew that was coming down. I believe he may actually leave the race. The only shot I think he had for getting any money for re-election, remember, it's about campaign donations for him, the ability to raise money would be if those projects were going. And now the Trump administration studied, and those throw off our ability to monitor activity. So now they've deemed it a national security risk. I think that's why he was a mess last week. I mean, out-of-town reporters were saying to me, that's the governor. I said, he's not impressive. He's usually not like, he seemed like Biden. On Thursday night, he was like Biden. Before we bring on Justin, folks, this portion of the program, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone for Propane Plus. Call them 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359, and always online at propaneplus.com. All right, lots to get to. Our segment, Politics This Week. Joining us right now, he is the managing editor of anchorrising.com, and it is our friend Justin Katz. Justin, first of all, I do want to wish you a Merry Christmas, but I want to start off, we're going to jump around a little bit. Something that, first of all, I disagree with the Dan McGowan column of, in its darkest hour, Providence met the moment. That does not seem to be the way people around the country are reacting. I find myself last week invited on all these national shows, and I have to defend, and they're being just pummeled. But I want to at least first get your reaction to, on Friday night, Mayor Smiley, his husband, went to the Providence PC home game with Chief Perez, and then they stood up and got a standing ovation. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, from last week, I'm very quick to defend people who are put in these extreme situations, even politicians. It's not something, sometimes we expect them to do too much. But in this case, the unjustified applause and celebration of them, it strikes me as unseemly. I mean, at best, you could say they didn't mess everything up. I mean, they didn't have any tips until the homeless guy came forward and with the name on, or the hints on Reddit. They found the body days after the guy killed himself in New Hampshire. Meanwhile, he had murdered somebody after the Brown incident. I mean, this was not a huge success. They did not beat back the barbarians coming in to catch Rhode Islanders. And so to celebrate them as if they did just strikes me as unseemly. And what I think it is I've been saying all week that the blame for a lot of this falls on us, the Rhode Island voters, for failing to elect people who could handle a crisis or keep us safe. And so I think a lot of it is, and a lot of what we see in the news media celebrating them, is really kind of self-defense of, yeah, we elect terrible people who have no business in their roles, but they didn't screw everything up. So let's applaud them. Let's applaud ourselves. And that's kind of my cynical take on the whole thing.
One of the things, Justin, and it also starts with, I get the nature of that they have all these people on the stage, but and Mayor Smiley, he's going to do things the way he wants to do it. I heard early on they wanted to do it the way they did the COVID briefings. But the difference is you have the national media. The only thing that people wanted, as someone that was in the room every day and at all these briefings, the only thing that people wanted was information from law enforcement. This business of having, Sabina Matos be on stage, even Governor McKee getting on stage. I almost, they should have been, if anyone that saw the U.S. Attorney of Massachusetts, Leah Foley, when she held a briefing, it was one voice. It was very smooth. It was very polished. It was very informational. At times, these things just, rocketed. Too many people. They're all crammed together. You had the situation with where you had that. Just what is also your thought? Tell me your thoughts on Governor McKee.
Well, yeah, I heard you mentioning him earlier and how he didn't look well. He was, in fairness to him, he had almost no role in this whole thing. I mean, it probably would have been better, as you indicate, just to keep him off the stage, and it would have been better to keep a lot of them off the stage. I mean, that's, as you say, the news media, the people, they want facts. They want to know what they can do to help. They want some sense of what's going on and what information is out there. I mean, in the past, it wouldn't have been unheard of for law enforcement to come out with a map of the classroom and say he came in here, just explain the situation to all of us. And instead of doing that, we got this roundabout with Rona, the Attorney General, chastising people, explaining how this is supposed to work. You get all the different politicians, Smiley coming in to say how tired they all are. So I agree, but I think of all of them, McKee had probably the smallest role. So he probably should have just stayed out of the whole thing. But once they're all up on the stage, you can't be left out. And so I think that was probably an initial decision they made, not knowing how to handle these things. That was an error on their part.
Yeah. And any other thoughts on, as the week went along, and just how they were being covered? Because because I was literally busy every minute. From what I saw, Justin, it's just, they were being, as soon as Sunday hit, when they announced that they didn't have the right person, then it seemingly like all hell broke loose. And a lot of it, there's so many different agencies coming together, and people don't realize it's Brown has their own police, and then there's Providence Police, and then you had the FBI agents shifting through the snow with their feet, and then I even had a problem with some of the reporters that were demanding the chief address things in Spanish. It's one thing when Telemundo is there and asking Spanish, but you had some, like, this wasn't a Spanish story. It wasn't in the hood. I'm not saying that there aren't Spanish residents that in Providence, there's a lot of them that aren't, obviously, you want to get them the news, but that's to those news outlets. Like, it didn't make sense to me when an English speaking member of the media is saying to the chief, can you address everyone in Spanish? There was no reason to believe that this was wildly impactful, and it was coming from people that are English speaking media. Just your thought on that.
Well, it feels like what you get in a region that puts a lot of weight on the progressive perspective, that has to defend a lot of that. And I think that's why you see things like articles about how the mayor's gay husband held him up, and walked the dog during this ordeal, that kind of thing. That's the story they want to tell. When they wouldn't normally have asked for the police chief to translate into Spanish, but hey, he speaks Spanish, and that's part of why Rhode Island would put him in this position. So that's the story we want to tell. Could you address people in Spanish, please? And I think that's a lot of the mentality that went into it, and shows what a clown show we live in around here. I mean, part of the problem was, you referenced the Massachusetts comparison of a DA, I believe, who kind of took control of the stage. We have nobody like that. There's nobody, none of the people in that up and down were, generals in the military or had any real gravitas. It could have been a police chief. That would be a natural role. But early on, he started using wrong terms, in custody rather than detained, and had to be corrected live by the Attorney General. There was just nobody up there who could say, this is how we're going to do it. Here's the orderly way in which we're going to communicate with you. And we don't have that in Rhode Island again. And I think it falls to us as the voters, because we are just not capable of demanding leadership that's that's able to lead us in that way. And so I think, I wrote this week about how Rhode Islanders are safe. It's safe in Rhode Island because Rhode Island is safe, not because our leaders do anything special. And I think what we saw this week is they're not really capable of keeping us safe when something actually happens.
What was your take on Attorney General Peter Neronha and a very visible role that he played in this? He was also doing interviews all over CNN and MSNBC. What do you think of that, Justin?
Well, I think a lot of people with negative attitudes about Neronha have probably found them justified this week. I mean, from the chastising the public for speculating, even after the police had asked for speculation, stuff like that. I caught him in an interview talking about trying to tie it to, I think it was with Ian Donis, trying to tie it to the Second Amendment and guns, but at the same time trying to be reasonable, saying, well, people go out and they're hit by cars all the time. He just, something is up with Neronha. I kind of wonder if he's got whatever illness he might have had, because it's just, he wasn't effective. He could have been. I'm not sure why he wasn't. Maybe it's just that Rhode Island politician need to seem superior, but I don't think he came out very well at all.
I think the person actually that came out to me the worst was Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, where he was the one that announced, everybody just shut up in this whole business online. And it was the Reddit post online that ended up essentially cracking the case.
Yeah, I mean, how typical of Whitehouse, of the old money, blue blood politician with the house and the mansion in Newport, to come in and say, you all just need to be quiet. Let us handle this. After the police had, this was forgotten so quickly. It's been astonishing. The police picked up the wrong person, leaked the name, set off rounds of speculation, and kind of went on almost as if we got the guy. That was sort of the attitude when they didn't have the guy at all. The guy was actually about to kill again, apparently. So that's forgotten very quickly in all this. And I wrote a piece this week suggesting maybe we should take it easy on social media, because basically what people do on social media is investigate. This is how investigation kind of works. You've got everybody throwing around ideas. The difference is it doesn't happen in a command center where only the police get to hear what's being said. It happens in public. And that's a very interesting dynamic that ought to be explored. But to have a U.S. senator out there telling people to shut up, that's just, it's further embarrassment for Rhode Island.
Well, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is Justin Katz has found. And what do you have for us this week, Justin?
Well, we've been both following the work of Nicole Solis down in South Kingstown, and her lawsuit where the teachers union, NEARI, is suing her for information. The latest, I guess, is they're trying to get information about her PayPal account so that they can go after, I guess, whoever donated money to her, or at least create the impression that they might. And I think that really points to me where this whole lawsuit is going, is an attempt to silence the public so that people won't go forward because this union might sue them. They won't donate to people who do go forward because then they might have their records subpoenaed or discovered during a lawsuit. I think that's probably their primary goal. And what's really striking in this time, when I see journalists talking about how wonderfully Providence and Rhode Island officials handled the Brown shooting, is they're not covering Nicole Solis. Because very similar dynamics where the insiders have to be always right, and that's the union in this case. And so I think that's worth keeping an eye on, and we're certainly doing that on anchorrising.com.
And Justin, I want to just touch on it because I want people to understand. To me, this begins and ends. It's a difficult dynamic when you have these large universities, whether it's Brown University or RISD or Providence College or Johnson & Wales. They're major tenants, just as an example, in the city of Providence. And they run like their own mini cities, and they all have security forces. And I think it's a relationship that needs to be re-examined, because it's one thing, they're always, the local leaders are pushing, let's just use Brown as an example, but they're always pushing them. They got to make more contributions, and they're supposed to be a tax exempt institution, just like a church or a hospital. But we saw firsthand when you have someone and they basically say, We have our own like mini city within your city, and we have our own police force, and this is how we do things. You see the difficulties that can arise on how much it impacts the city, how much it impacts the drain on public safety resources. That building, number one, should never have been left open 24/7. Number two, last March, you did have protesters demanding, these cameras are hurting our freedom of speech. Take down the cameras. Public safety can't be an act of negotiation. I fear, and I think you're right, the progressive attitude always falls into, we have to end this gun violence. But this shooter, he is, regardless of being a psychopath, but he is actually a brilliant physicist. He could have built a bomb and placed it in there. To me, these people, and I have no idea if RISD operates that way. Now we're hearing stories that part of this has to do with some of the professors like we're such good people. We have homeless people in and out of the building, and telling the students, everyone today, should give them a sandwich. And some of the kids in the dorm felt like, we're such good people. We allow homeless people to sleep in the building. When you do that, you allow everybody access. The fact of the matter is, that building needed much more cameras. It needed security. It needs, what is the point of having an ID that you have to swipe to get in if then anybody can get into the building? And the fact that this individual was floating around there for quite some time, again, he was very cautious. They still don't have video of him getting in and out of his car. You see him walking around, still checking the cameras. My point is, there are nuts out there, and but they're not all, this was a sophisticated, he was in the Brown program for that. He clearly has or had a brilliant mind, but when you have someone that then goes down a criminal path, the lack, to me, it begins and ends with the lackadaisical manner of, hey, we're just like a progressive place and everything's free, and we don't want to stifle speech by having a lot of cameras. It didn't do them any good in the aftermath. I want to give you the final word.
Well, I think there's a lot to what you say, and to me the biggest issue is it's inconsistent. They both promise like a padded room world, and yet pretend like that's just going to happen. It's just a given. You can make decisions either way. Say we're going to have cameras or we're not going to have cameras, but you have to admit reality, right? And I think that's a lot of what we see on college campuses today, is that refusal to just admit reality. All right, we let homeless people on campus because it adds to the character and we feel like good people. Well, that's sometimes going to have consequences. But then they try to turn around and blame it on guns or blame it on something else. Washington Post blames it on Trump allies who are spreading conspiracy theories. That's the problem. They need to pick their principles and stick by them. And I think that's really the underlying fault of Ivy League institutions at this point.
I agree. Folks, again, he's the managing editor of anchorrising.com, Justin Katz. Justin, excellent job as always. Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. Have a Merry Christmas.
All right, folks, there it is. Our segment, Politics This Week, with Justin Katz, managing editor of anchorrising.com. I do want to give you the latest details, and we're going to be dealing in facts. I recognize in a situation like this that some people immediately go into the conspiracy stuff. That's not something that I do. That's not something that I'm going to be pursuing. And we're going to, there's still a lot of information here. There's still a lot of information. Just so you're clear, to me, this isn't one of the stories that I'm going to be covering. It is the story I'm going to be covering. There's so many different layers to this. I saw some people actually posting on one of my pages today, move on. No, you move on, because I intend to interview everyone connected with this. I'm not going into some of this other stuff that I just don't think is particularly important. There's a lot to dig in here, and I'm going to touch on some of the dynamics of what we know. This portion of the program It's brought to you. Remember, Servpro of Providence. If you have a disaster, fire damage, water damage, fast, thorough, professional, Servpro of Providence. Call them 401 941 5500. If you have a fire, you're going to have fire damage. You're going to have smoke damage. Those things happen. You're going to have water damage. Then you could have mold. Servpro of Providence, 401 941 5500. They're fast, thorough, and professional. It's Servpro of Providence. Now, I know that there's a number of people that there was more than one person involved. I'm just going off right now. We don't have any evidence of that. There could be something that presents that. I admit this whole thing is very odd, and there's some things of this that we may never know. I don't get it. I don't get why. If we really want to like float out there, I was the one that broke that this guy, the shooter, had offshore bank accounts. Where did the money come from? Who was putting money in the accounts? If we want to go down that path, and I'll do it a little cautiously. I'll do it with someone that might actually this individual's into his device to find out as much as they can about this guy. But what was he doing here? And what has he been doing actually for the past how many years? There's no employer that has come forward. They don't have him working somewhere. We don't have anyone stepping saying, I worked with him at such and such a place. Where did he get the money? Why? And I'll let the weapons in that. So he rents a car in the Boston area. He seemed to spend a lot of time in Providence. He was switching the license plate from Maine, that we know of, maybe another license plate. But they don't have video of him getting in and out of a vehicle, which tells me, for those of you that know the Providence area, and when we were following those federal agents last week, so it tells me if you go into the Fox Point area, which is Ives Street, Gano Street, this guy, Valente, he found a spot that he could park and undetected and no cameras. Now, I also want to say, if there are people right now, if you believe, they're withholding, then I'll say you know evidence of that. It's so easy to just say, please tell me believe that. Right now, I'm not saying that no video of him getting in and out of that vehicle. And in fairness, maybe they say that they would have figured out what the vehicle was, but it was, the homeless guy that then described the vehicle from the Reddit post. But if I really want to play out the conspiracy thing, you would think of, and I just want to flow this out. I didn't say I believe it. I didn't say there's enough evidence there. But if you want to go down that path, who was paying him? This could have been so much worse. Do you understand? This guy seemingly had a brilliant mind. They talk about people who went to school with him said he could solve any problem you put in front of him. He could have put a bomb there. He also, I think he had body armor on. That's maybe then why he, because they did find body armor, which is a bulletproof vest there. And he had a lot of ammo. So we don't know exactly, but this could have been triple or 4 times worse than what it was. If you have access to a building, he could have put a bomb in there. Now, let's play this out a little bit. He escapes. He goes down Waterman. Waterman somewhere down around there. he found a dead spot where he could park his car and go in and out, and they don't have that. And if you what I believe them until I see differently, that they just don't have that. So that's number one. Number two, he killed and executed the MIT professor in Brookline on Monday night. So as someone floated to me, let's just say he was hired. Let's just play. I'll go into that just for a moment. I'll put on the tin, but he's hired, and the individual says, once you complete the Brookline job, meet me at the storage facility, and then I'll fully pay you. But instead, they execute him, and they execute him to make it look like it was self-harm. I don't know. Why would you? Why would you take your life? I was on a podcast last night with Paul Murrow. We were speculating. Maybe he felt they were onto him. Maybe he felt, oh wow, now they have that video. They saw what like at our time. They didn't catch him. When I was talking to police on Thursday, they felt he could. The phrase I heard was, "This guy could be in the wind. He could be gone, and he could have been gone. He could have." The whole thing is odd. He rented the car in his name. Why did he do that? Did he do that on purpose? Did someone rent it for him in his name? I don't know. But when he left Brookline, he could have gone. He could have driven to Canada and been out of the country. Why go to the storage facility and then take your own life? Because they did not know who he was until Wednesday night. They did not. Monday, Tuesday, and this is also really important. For those of you that watched the coverage last week, the reason why they were staying in that area is as of up until last Wednesday night, they thought that the shooter lived in that area. That's why, for those, again, I'm going to say, for those of you who were watching when we were live and riding around following the federal agents, they were literally going door to door and taking down and building a graph of every single person that lives on Gano Street, Governor, who lives on Preston, who lives on Arnold. They were convinced that somehow it could have just been some recluse nutcase that lived just some apartment, maybe works online remotely, and he did this, and then went home, because they did not have him in a car. They have the ability of the flock cameras to hit a license plate on a car, but they didn't have him in a vehicle because they didn't have him getting in a vehicle, which is highly unusual. Maybe not really, but that's really unusual. I think that the U.S. Attorney of Massachusetts, I'm very impressed with Leah Foley, how the fact that she said he was very cautious. He had credit cards that were not in his name. He used a Google phone. So it was then tough to ping that, because then they're going over the cell tower and they're pulling every possible cell phone and trying to run that. And they don't have that. But I want to come back to the custodian at Brown, Derek Lisi. And he notices this guy what's this guy doing here? And he seems out of place. But this goes internal. If you're a security, now again, there's difference. You have Brown Police, they call it all public safety, and then they hire and they have a private security firm. So if you are working for them, private security, what is the protocol that you're supposed to do if you notice a suspicious person? Because it doesn't sound like they take it serious. It's very possible that they say, because of Thayer Street, we always have some kind of suspicious people walking around. This was different. This is not some homeless guy hanging out on Thayer Street, walking on the campus. This guy's going in and out of the buildings and looking in. He was scouting out. Where is he going to go? And then specifically Tanner Hall, room 166. There was a huge breakdown. I have no idea why that security guard did not alert someone. Someone should have gone up to him and said, can I ask what you're doing here? Can I see your ID? Maybe that would have spooked him. Maybe then they would have had on this particular date, so-and-so, Claudio Valente was here. I think, my belief, it's ridiculous that you have a car rental agency that has clear video and they don't have video. My point is, it's that relationship between the city of Providence and Brown University. It has to change. It can't be anymore. We've decided. My thought. It can't be. Well, we don't want to have a lot of cameras. You're going to have cameras. It's not even going to be an option. Like, what are you talking about? Guess what? You're going to have cameras everywhere. And you know what? You know what the good news is? If there's a student that says, "Well, I'm not going to attend here," if you're going to have all these cameras, do you know how difficult it is to get into Brown University? You know, the good news for Brown is it's impossible to get into. It is. It's extremely difficult to get into. I'm not saying that no one gets it, but highly, highly difficult. Most of the time, the amount of students that apply to get in, it's the rejection. I think they have like 25,000 kids that try to get in there for just a couple of slots. So my point is, if there's someone that says, "Well, I don't want all these kids," well, guess what? We have 10,000 students that'll take your place. But especially on the peripheral of the campus, because as I said, when you cross the street, you're on Manning Street. When you leave the building, you're immediately on Waterman. Or then you leave there and you're on Benevolent. You're in a residential neighborhood. That has got to end. The only video seemingly that Brown had it's at the corner of the building that then showed him crossing the street from Hope Street to Waterman. There should have been much more video. And then you work with some of the neighbors in your neighborhood. The building across the street, for security, would you mind if we put a camera on your roof? So then you not only have video on your building, you have video at the buildings across the street from you on your property. I don't think, I would not have a problem that if I'm a student and every time you go into a building, there's a camera that shows who comes in, who comes out. They have the swipe cards. They need to take serious. Think about that. What would he have done if suddenly the security called police and said, "We got a suspicious guy here"? I'll tell you what they do. What's your name? Can I see a form of identification? I don't have anything. Well, what are you doing here, bro? What are you doing? Why are you in this building? This is private property. You can't just walk in here. Well, I don't have my license with me. Well, then we're going to ask you to leave, and then we're going to make sure we document who, take a picture of you, and I think that would have deterred him from coming back. And then what if the next day they see him, or the next week they see him? Who is this guy? Somebody follow him, see how he's getting around here. The fact they hired Zach Kuna, there's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely going to be litigation here. I think there was too much of a focus on these poor students that are innocent and they're being posted online. Hey, listen, all you have to say is, "Hey guys, it wasn't me. I flew out of there. I left campus Saturday morning. Here's my plane ticket. I was nowhere near there." Boom, off the list. I think the whole thing of the custodial agent calling the tip line. Every single one of those individuals should have been interviewed. We need to interview every custodial worker. We need to talk to anyone that is consistently in and out of these buildings. That stuff should have been done internal, and it sure doesn't sound like it was done internal. When you have people contacting the tip line is supposed to be for the general public, as I've said. So now, again, I'm not going to stifle, because it's very possible that it's very possible that something else could present itself. But what they want to work on right now is they need to get a footprint of where this guy has been and what led him here and who's putting money in these offshore accounts. And he's got an address in Miami, but he was really in Las Vegas. Then he was in Boston. This custodial person saying he was here in November, in early November. That is not someone showing up day of. That is not. We initially, I sat in that room, and we were told he first appeared Saturday morning at 10:30. Well, that certainly wasn't true. There was a lot of things that weren't true. I know it was challenging of having that many members of law enforcement. Brown University also, they need to get their act together with the active shooter drills. Don't say, well, we don't want to traumatize the kids. The kids have them in high school. Many of the kids said because of their high school training with active shooter, they felt more comfortable. In the past, for employees at Brown, there was an interview in the Boston Globe with the former chief saying that active shooter drills were not mandatory to attend to. They were voluntary. That's got to change. I mean, the entire way, Brown is going to be, Brown to me is almost like how the country was on September 10th and then how it was after September 11th. It's going to be, here's how things were on the campus on December 12th, and here's how they were after that, which is what is the point of having this wonderful, and it's a beautiful campus. I love that section of the city. I know a lot of people knock Providence. I'm not one of them. I love the East Side. I've always loved the East Side. I had relatives on the East Side. I had relatives a mile where the building is, right around there, maybe a mile. I don't even think a mile. I spent every holiday over there. And then in high school, we used to hang around Thayer Street. I interned at WBRU. I love the East Side, and it is a beautiful place, and know so many people that have gone to school there, and know a lot of the business owners around there. No, it's terrible what happened, but you can't have that. This lackadaisical attitude. So a custodial, and I give him a lot of credit. Derek Lacey goes up to a security guard. Hey, there's that guy again, and they do nothing with it. Now you can say that, well, that guy should be fired or held accountable, but it goes beyond that. Are they even in the practice of taking rewards and tracking people? You got to realize you have a lot of people up there that were supportive of when the students were camping out on the campus, and they give money and sandwiches to homeless people, and there's a socialist progressive attitude, and they frown on law enforcement, and they frown on policing, and they frown on security, and everything should be free and open, and like, let's not make people feel uncomfortable. And it's definitely an attitude. And look what happened. Did that homeless guy have access to use the bathroom at 5 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Apparently he did. And that building was wide open. And people that lived in the neighborhood knew if you went for a walk or a run and you were around there, that building was open. And you could use the restroom if you needed to. But guess what? You leave the door open, other people know about it and come out. And he stalked that out. And he realized that that's the building I'm going to pick. That sounds like he was in town much longer. By the way, he may have ruled out other buildings. He may have initially wanted to do it in a dorm and realize, I can't get into the dorm. It's too locked down. He may have wanted to do it somewhere else with a big lecture hall or something. And then did not, and then settled on that building's easy access. Why did he do it? We don't know. Why did he kill the MIT professor? Jealousy? They knew each other? I don't know. There's another aspect of that MIT professor that we'll discuss at another time. There's definitely a lot of conspiracy stuff that is out there. But first and foremost, this was totally caught off guard. They need drills. It should have been 2 hours max to evacuate the campus, not 8 hours evacuating people. No one should have been let go. On Sunday, they shouldn't have said, students are free to go home. Every student that had access been in that building before they left campus. There were just so many mistakes made. Providence police were then trying to play catch up. Providence police really didn't start the investigation, really, until that Monday. And then by Wednesday night, they had the name. But if things had been done differently, and I'll admit the FBI interfered, Kash Patel, when he leaked, that someone was being in custody, and then members of the Bureau leaked to the Washington Post who the guy was. It just set things down that path. So, folks, I believe we're going to be live later tonight. I do. So, but as of right now, very soft target. Yes. Thank you, Jeff. All right. Thank you, everybody. I think we're going to be live later tonight. But enjoy this Monday, and we are on tomorrow as well.